Hey everyone, Dr. Rueben Brock here. I wanted to apologize for the audio quality you're about to hear on this episode. During the taping, one of the audio channels, and unfortunately it was the audio of our guest, Dennis Cole, completely cut out. And so when we went to watch this video, there was no channel 2, there was no audio for our guest. We considered scrapping the entire interview, but after watching it, we decided it was just too important. We wanted to bring you this, and so we did what we had to do to make it work so that you can hear his audio, but it unfortunately will not be the same quality that you're used to here at House Call. So I apologize for that. I apologize to Dennis Cole. Bear with us while we fix these things and work through the kinks and as we learn how to do this thing. But I hope you enjoy the show. Hey everyone, welcome to House Call. I'm Dr. Rueben Brock. I want to talk today about police and the relationship the police have to the community, in particular the black community. And with us today we have Officer Dennis Cole, who is a police officer in the Pittsburgh area. We have chosen not to identify particularly what department he's in or what neighborhood he works in, because he has to work in the community, and we want to make sure we're making clear we're not talking about his particular department or any community in particular. We're talking in general about police in America, and so I want to thank you first of all for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And my understanding is that it's actually difficult for a lot of police officers to even be able to have these kinds of conversations. Sometimes maybe they don't feel like they're allowed. Maybe sometimes doesn't feel like a good idea. So I appreciate your willingness to be able to come here and talk openly.
I appreciate you. Again, this is, I really push for this because I think it's a very important topic.
Yeah.
To have an open dialogue about. Obviously, being a black police officer, I see both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And I understand both ends of the spectrum. So I appreciate you having me because this is very near and dear to me.
Okay. So you and I met months ago. We met right around the time of an incident in Pittsburgh, the Antoine Rose incident. And we were talking on Facebook, and you were willing to sit down with me, and we met. And I was really struck by your perspective on this. And so I'll kind of give a little bit of it for those who weren't there with us when we talked. We were talking about the idea of some of the protests that are happening, the Black Lives Matter and some of the different protest groups. And you actually believe that those protests are maybe misguided.
Yes, I do.
Help me understand.
First, I want to say the tragedy in Antoine Rose, Mrs. Rose, Mr. Rose, I'm sorry for your loss. That was a very tragic event. I sympathize with you and the Pittsburgh community on that incident. With that being said, the movements that were going on were misguided in my personal opinion, because you only rioted because of a police officer shooting a young black male.
Mm-hmm.
But no one rioted for the black male that they shot. So there, in my personal opinion, I don't understand where the Black Lives Matter. Where do you draw the line for the Black Lives? Is it when a black life is taken by an officer, in particular a white officer, but generally a police officer, but we kind of bypass killing our own? So when do we? Where's the line? I mean, I don't understand it. I don't. Maybe I'm not seeing the big picture of it, but I just don't see how we can protest the situation in Pittsburgh, but not take in consideration the black lives that they shot.
Right.
If they would have killed that young man, would they have protested and shut down the park?
Right. And so you're saying, to clarify, you're saying because allegedly the young men that were in the car that were ultimately chased down by police, one of them was shot. Those young men were in a drive-by shooting. Or that's what we believe at this point, right? Is
that's what came out.
Right.
Officer Roosevelt got acquitted of the charges. So again, unfortunate that those young men chose that decision and put themselves in that situation.
Yeah.
I wish they kind of a little more guidance or chose a better option than that. But so yes, Roosevelt was acquitted, but
right.
I think that the situation they were involved in the drive-by of another black male.
And you're saying where's Black Lives Matter protesting that? You're saying right. When black people kill black people, Black Lives Matter isn't out there in the street, is what you're saying.
Right, and actually, in the hood, there's a no snitching policy.
Right. So,
as a first responder or someone that's trying to get somebody that gets closure for a family, we've all lost somebody. When you lose somebody to that degree to the hand of another person over shoes or wearing the wrong color or just a Twitter beef, we'll call it.
Yeah.
The family grieves hard over that.
Right.
They don't understand the ramifications of it. So me as a first responder, I have to try to put this puzzle together, but we need help with the community.
Mm-hmm.
And in the black community, there's a no talking and a no snitching policy. So in my head, Black lives don't matter in that degree.
Yeah.
Because you just clearly disregarded it. Otherwise, you would help. If you really cared, you would help.
Right. You're saying if Black lives did matter, then you'd be helping with all these.
Yeah. To be as one, and we work together, and we would keep this out of our area.
But I have to push back in the sense that surely you recognize that the Black Lives Matter movement and a lot of these protests, they are particularly talking about and targeting what they perceive as an unjust system. They're saying when a young black male on the street shoots another young black male, if we find out who did the shooting, that young black male is going to jail, right? Oftentimes, police officers are taking lives and not being, more often than not, I think the research that I've seen says it's something like 90-something% of police officers get off, right? And so the protest is about the system.
Right, but we want to fix the system. The protest is to bring awareness to fix the system.
Okay.
The system is flawed. I'll be the first person to tell you it's flawed. Nothing on this earth is perfect. So anything that man has made is flawed. You're going to have the issues with that. I think to fix the system is to fix us.
How do you mean?
So when we go to, I never worked in Chicago, but I know Chicago got a high minority African American population,
right?
And they also got one of the highest murder capitals in the world. I'm sure when Chicago police go investigate a shooting that they have very frequently, and they go knock on doors, it leads to very few leads to apprehend the suspect. Okay. So in order to, and I'm just using Chicago as an example.
Right. Sure. Right.
Just hypothetically. So if we were going to fix the system or have the system respect us as a community, a black community, then we need to fix us first. Once we fix us and get that riffraff out of our community, then they have no choice but to respect us.
You're saying
the system will be ratified. It will amend itself once we iron out our issue.
You're saying it starts with us. We as a community have to clean up our community, and then the system will respond differently to us because we are acting differently.
In my personal opinion, it has no choice. So when we go to, we'll give a prominent area around here is Peters Township.
Okay.
Mount Lebanon, Upper St. Clair, where they have a high Caucasian population. You go do a crime. I mean, I'm talking about if you even go walk in someone's grass.
Right.
Your neighbors telling. They got their doorbell camera telling. The police, hey, police officer, if you need me for subpoena me,
Right.
at his face and tell him he walked through your yard.
Right.
Okay? You go do that in the west end of, we'll say, Washington on Fayette Avenue, and you rob somebody, even though you know that person got cameras, they don't give you access to it.
Right.
Even though you know that person seen something across the street on the porch, they don't tell you.
Right.
So what's the difference between Peters and west end of Washington?
The culture in the communities are different.
Right.
And you're saying the culture in our community makes it so that the police, the justice system treat us differently.
They have to treat us differently.
But surely you recognize America has a pretty long history, right? A pretty long history of blatant oppressive systems toward black people, right? And we can't ignore that, right?
You can't ignore that. You can't. Okay, let me rewind this. Back in the day, when we first got free, blacks were proud people. We come from a lineage of king and queen, kings and queens from Africa. We were brought over. We were tore down into slaves. When we got free, there was the Black Wall Street. There was multiple black cities, Tulsa, Oklahoma. There were prominent cities, proud cities of African Americans. African Americans essentially policed yourself, much like Peters Township does. If you do something wrong,
we'll deal with it.
We're gonna deal with you.
Right.
I'm gonna grab you. If I see little Jimmy run down the street knocking mailbox off, not only are you gonna get beat by your neighbors,
right,
I'm gonna drag you to your house.
Right. They're gonna beat you at home. Right. You know what I mean? And we actually have an episode about that, talking about that, bringing that back, the need for bringing that back.
We have to. So we took care of our own. I think, my personal opinion, we got really reliant on government assistances.
Okay.
To where, you know, we didn't have to. So the black male was in the home. Pre-80, pre-crack epidemic. The black man was in the home. He was the head of the household. He worked. Big mama fed the family, fed the house, kept everything together. After government assistance, I want to call it, and us more reliant on government needs, then you seen a shift of the incarceration, in my personal opinion.
Right.
You see a shift in incarceration of the black male, you take the head of the black household off, you cut the snake off the head, the body dies.
Right.
So now we have a high African American incarceration rate.
Right.
And the rest of us are struggling.
And I agree with what you just said, but I'll use your analogy. You said you cut the head off the snake, the body dies. Who cut the head off that snake? I
think it was a little bit of both of us. I think it was us and the government and the system, we'll call it. So the system saw that we were taking over. That's just how I see it. We had prominent black.
Okay. We're doing too well. They say we got to chop them down.
Do something. Because we just had these people in slavery 100 years ago. Now all of a sudden they're starting their own Wall Street. They got a prominent.
This is getting too big.
This is becoming an issue. So they had to find a way. Just like anything, just like when they did the Indians, just like the way they did the Jews, it's what they did since the beginning of time. They had to find a way to keep the oppressed oppressed. Okay. So then when I'm not saying, you know, Ronald Reagan gave crack to the hood. I don't know. I wasn't born then, but you know, they had to find a system.
Right. But
bring it back to oppression.
But what you're bringing up, what I was just about to say. I mean, there's pretty solid research on this that says exactly what you're talking about. It's before Reagan, goes back to the Nixon administration, where the whole war on drugs essentially was designed to infiltrate our communities.
Yeah, and we fell for the trap.
And you're saying that's on us. They're going to do what they're going to do.
What they're going to do. You're not going to stop that. But it's like fishing. You throw the bait in the water. You get some days you don't.
Right.
We bit the bait. So now we're trying to. We're fighting to get back.
Isn't it fair for them to say, but what we are doing is fighting the system?
Well, you can fight the system, but you're not going to win.
So you're saying our time, our money, our energy is better spent in our communities, fixing our communities, Because that's what we can control.
That's what we can control. And then once you can control your community, the outside world has no choice but to respect you.
Yeah.
Like I said, Peters Township and the west end of Washington, the only difference is a culture and demographics.
Right.
That's the only thing. It's still grass, dirt, and cement.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. So why do they take so much pride in their grass, dirt, and cement, but we don't take pride in our grass, dirt, and cement? Sometimes we don't hold ourselves accountable for our actions. We rather blame it on the system, the man, instead of sitting there just swallowing our pride and say, we effed up.
But let me ask you this, because what I've noticed over the last several years, and it probably goes back to, certainly this wasn't the beginning, but I think about like the one in the George Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin, that sort of started this trend, in my opinion, of this like really, really common occurrence of these videos of police interactions, right? But what I've noticed, the thing that is most striking to me is now we see it all the time. We see all these videos of police interactions with particularly black males. And when I watch these interactions, I say, you put a white person in that scenario and it doesn't go the way that it just went. Do you agree with that?
To an extent, I do. To an extent. I get what you're saying. To an extent, I do agree with you. But again, we don't police ourselves. So, me, for example, I've decided to be a police officer.
Right.
But I just went to a recent convention in Ohio, and there was 1,500 SWAT operators, and there was 5 of us.
Right. 5 black officers.
So, you're putting these white officers in the lines then.
Yeah.
They're not used to being into that culture.
Right.
So we're getting upset that they don't understand us, but we don't want to come back to our community and police our community.
Yeah. Yep.
I police my community so I can be an example of black boys.
Yeah.
Listen, I want you to come back and you could do this. You do this. Then
right. But you acknowledge, because my hypothesis about all this is that many police officers, and particularly, in all fairness, particularly white officers, fundamentally see us differently than they see other people, right? You don't agree?
No, I don't agree with that. No,
well, and let me. So I'll take the Tamir Rice shooting as an example. 12-year-old boy on the playground holding a toy gun.
Yeah.
Maybe it looks like a real gun, but my understanding is that the 911 call that came out, it said, I think it might be a toy gun. Right. And so policeman rolls up on this kid on the playground, and I mean, you saw the video.
Yeah.
Opens the door, and before he could even say 2 words, shoots this 12-year-old boy. 12-year-old white boy doesn't get shot.
You can't say that because we don't have that comparison. Hypothetically, you might be right. But I can't say that they wouldn't shoot the white kid neither because we just don't have that comparison. I think we legit have to make a split-second decision to save our lives or the community.
Yeah.
And then you need to have 10 years to break it down of what we did wrong.
Right, sure.
So I mean, I don't want to, I don't know what this officer saw. I don't know how exactly the radio transmission came across.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I love dispatch, but sometimes they get a little messed up.
Right.
So, sometimes the information gets a little screwed on our end. That Tamir Rice situation, I don't know the whole... I don't know what he saw. I don't know,
But isn't that... the argument that I hear about this, and I agree with this argument, is that the police officer is the one with the training, right?
Yes.
So if you're going to be with the one with the gun, don't you also have to be the one with the training? Or, you know what I mean?
No, we train. And we train, we train. We get certifications. We get qualifications each year, you know what I mean? But I would say probably about 95% of police officers do not want to sit there and say, "I'm gonna kill black kids."
Yeah, right, right,
You know? 'Cause
right.
it just changed. Like we see so much carnage between accidents and other people,
yeah.
and other people. The last thing we want to do
is to add to it.
bring it to our home.
Right.
Like
But you bring up a good point, and this is something that I really struggle with because in my field, it's actually built into our ethical code that we speak up when we see one of our own doing something wrong. So if a counselor or a psychologist knows of another counselor or psychologist that has done something wrong, I am ethically bound to say something. And I think a lot of people have said, where are the good cops? When you see something bad happen, you don't see police officers, you generally don't see police officers out there on the front lines going, this has got to stop.
And you know why you don't see it? It don't sell. If it's sold tabloids, then they.
But you're saying police officers do speak out.
You know how many people got pulled over since we started this dialogue? I mean, there's 300-something million people in this country. Probably a traffic stop every 2 seconds, I believe it is.
Right.
We haven't got nothing on our phones about no bad interactions. So there is.
And when I say where are the good cops, I don't mean are there good cops. I know there are good cops.
Yeah.
What I mean is where are the good cops speaking out against the bad cops?
You'll never see it. You'll never see it.
Does it happen?
It happens. Yes. When a cop is getting out of line, I have seen a person where a cop has stepped in and said, "Hey, listen, take a step back." Not me particularly, but I've seen him do it to an officer. Right. Where
you've seen officers step in and say to him, "Hey, man,
you're getting a little too carried away. Step back. I'll step in, and we'll go from there." But you'll never, ever, ever see that as a public. Because don't sell tabloids.
Right. That's not a news story.
That's not a news story.
I understand what you're saying.
The news story is
when something
happens.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, and again, like I said, we've come from a long way of oppression and everything. But I mean, how many accounts have we seen within the last decade? 10, 15 maybe?
Right.
I mean, people get pulled over daily.
Right. Statistically, it is very, very rare.
Statistically, it's very, very rare.
Right.
But they exploit it. And it goes back to my thing where they make us look bad with the Black Lives Matter because now they knew we were going to protest. We're going to tear our stuff up.
Yeah.
But we don't have no garnishment. So now it just gives them ammo to make us a terrorist group.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
To label us. And we're helping them.
Yeah.
We're helping the system. We're not,
okay.
You know what I mean? Because they know we're going to do it. We're going to tear this place up.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So
but you also have to recognize there is a reasonable amount of frustration, right? On the part of, because nothing happens in a bubble, right? So the black community in America has been treated differently since we got here, right? I mean, and there's no disputing that. There's no way to refute that.
There's no disputing.
And so you have a black community that watches over and over again, even if it's statistically rare. If I pull up YouTube once a month for the last 5 years and see a black person get shot, that black person is unarmed, that wasn't attacking a police officer, and maybe by the book, okay, the police officer could have, shot this person, but you as a black person see this, and you're saying they're just allowed to shoot us? I mean, nothing's gonna happen.
I see, but like I said, I see both sides, but the video you're seeing is not the whole picture.
Right.
You're seeing a glimpse of it, and really on the news part of it, you're seeing the part that they know is going to sell.
Right. Right.
So you'll get a 30-second clip of something that has been going on for 15 minutes.
Right.
So I mean, I don't want to say that all these guys are rightfully, justly on the shooting. But
yeah.
I know they just threw one in South Carolina in jail for a while. The gentleman that shot the guy in the back and threw the taser down.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's wrong, it's wrong. You can't.
But that's pretty rare. It's pretty rare to see, right? I mean.
But then, to me, if it's so rare, then they must be doing their job to a degree. You know what I mean? Like, they got to be doing it right to a degree. Now, the one thing about law enforcement is it's not pretty.
Yeah.
That's why it's called enforcement, law enforcement. So if I have to get you to comply, that's why I have a taser, baton, pepper spray, handcuffs. I mean, there's a lot of times where we get into a fight because we're enforcing law.
Right. So it's going to be ugly.
It's going to be ugly. There's sometimes there's no other way to iron out law. It's just it has to be ugly.
And speaking of the clips and it gets ugly. I don't know if you saw this most recent one.
Phoenix.
Yes. Did you see it?
I watched it.
Okay. So this family leaves like the dollar store or something like that, and police follow them into a parking lot and roll up on these people. And to me, when I watched this clip, it honestly looked like one of those satire videos. This police officer's like going hard. And we're talking about a 4-year-old maybe stole a doll, right? I mean, when you look at that, what do you see?
It makes it when you first see it. Now, pre-policing it. Can I cuss?
You say whatever you want.
Pre-policing would piss me off.
Okay.
Pre-policing.
Okay.
After I got into this field, I don't know how the 911 call. Was she belligerent? Did she smack a clerk? Did she tear the store up? Like we've seen people do.
Okay.
I mean, so on video face value,
it doesn't look good.
It don't look good. I reserve judgment until the whole thing acts itself out.
Yeah.
Because you just don't know.
But and we always hear that. We hear let's see what happened. We don't know all the facts. But how many times do we have to see this thing play out before we recognize, all right, come on now?
Well, but it's just, again, if we go protest in Phoenix, Black Lives Matter, and it irons out that she tore all aisle 6.
Right.
Again, it gives them
right.
Look at this terrorist group. Look at this.
And then meanwhile, she wasn't in the
wrong.
Yeah.
She was wrong. I mean, a theft is a charge. I mean, granted, it's 4-year-old. I get it. Take it back into the store. Hey.
Right.
You know.
And my argument is, that's a little 4-year-old white kid that they say, hey, ma'am, do you know that your dog? Right? I mean,
it might be handled a little differently, but like I said, I would like to hear reserve judgment until I hear the whole thing.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
That's the only way to iron it out. Because if the clerk confronted her or the manager confronted her, she tore that store up.
Yeah.
Then how stupid do I look if I'm sitting there saying them guys were in the wrong when that's how they got the 911?
Right.
That's how, they got a physical altercation in the dollar store. Even just because we seen her holding a baby don't mean. I mean, I've seen people fight with babies in their hand.
Right.
I'm sure you've
right.
That, you know,
right.
Like,
it can happen. We don't know is what you're saying.
We don't know yet.
So I want to switch gears because you and I have talked and we agree that solution focus is far more important than, looking for solutions is far more important than, picking apart our differences.
Right.
So I'll tell you a story that allowed me to see a little bit into the eyes of a police officer because I read people for a living.
Yeah.
Right. So I remember this was probably 2 years ago. I was stopped by a police officer. I went too fast through a school zone. Didn't realize that it was a school zone. I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
And it was right on the heels of one of these incidents, right? There was literally probably the day before, maybe a couple of days before, there was one of these incidents with a police officer and a black person being killed. So this police officer pulls me over and my heart is pounding. I'm nervous.
Right.
And the police officer approaches the car and I could see it in his eyes. He did not want this to go badly. And someone might say, well, how can you see that in someone's eyes? I read people for a living.
Right.
So I'm looking at this guy and it's clear to me he does not want this thing to go badly. And so I'm attempting to be as cordial and how you doing, officer? I'm really sorry. I know exactly what happened. I apologize. I wasn't paying attention.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. And he tells me what I did wrong, was super pleasant. And he runs my information, comes back and essentially says to me, it was really a pleasure talking to you.
Yes.
Because I made it clear, we don't have beef. This is not right. You know what I mean? And reading his face as we interacted, it was clear to me he was just as nervous for it to go bad as I was. And it made me think, it appears to me as though the black community at this point has a reasonable fear of police, but then also that police have some degree of reasonable fear anytime they're interacting with black people. Because now it's sort of like if I interact with someone who's my known enemy, I'm on guard because I don't know when they're about to pop off, right? But my question about that is, how do you fix that?
One, you get more black Africans as police.
Okay.
Just as simple as that. You just need more black Africans. And I know a lot of people don't believe that there is none. There is none. I'm telling you.
Black people don't apply to be police officers. Okay. Okay.
Police their community.
Okay.
So that would nip that in the butt. And two, you're never really going to get rid of that because it's just a cultural difference. They don't understand us. And necessarily, we don't really understand them.
And I want to be fair because when you say us, you could be talking about either side. Who doesn't understand who?
I don't think both sides.
Okay.
I think both sides have reasonable fear on each end.
Okay.
Okay. So for my case, I'm always worried I'm gonna pull over a neo-Nazi.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I approach that car with extra caution.
Yeah.
You don't like me just for the sheer black of my skin color.
Right.
And then
right.
now I might possibly cite him or take him to jail. It's going to pop off. So I approach that. I have a reasonable fear of that person that I don't know until I build that rapport with them.
Right. Right.
But the way to build that rapport is, I think, is if you get more African Americans to apply to police officers to positions of power, and then I think you'll start seeing dialogues or channels change.
Right.
Because now you got more of a relatable experience.
Right.
You understand? Because I eat lunch with the white cops. I'm the only black cop in my area, essentially.
Right.
So talking to them, some of they're like, man, they don't understand it.
And I will say, what I've learned is over the years, the energy I bring to the interaction generally is what comes back to me. And so I say, I believe I can diffuse any situation. Right. Whether the police officer comes in hot or not, I believe my demeanor is going to dictate what happens next. But a lot of people would say, why do I have to do that? Why? That's not fair that I have to go that extra step or tap dance or...
No, it's not tap dance, but again, when are we going to start admitting we're wrong? If you run a stop sign, you're wrong.
Yeah,
so why are you giving me attitude for because you're wrong?
Right.
I'm just here to... I'm like, I don't want to call it your parent, but if you that's something that you ain't supposed to do,
you deal with it, right? So, what do you say to a young person, black or white, that you believe would help to make this situation better?
I think that people like in power, like myself and yourself, I think we would have to necessarily. I've been throwing this around in my head is maybe set up like a non-profit type deal to where I teach young men, not just African American men, but young men, to be financially stable. How to teach them how to invest, how to make their money, their money. Then that way they're independent.
Right.
That way they don't have to repeat the cycle.
Right. They're not out committing crimes because they're doing fine. Yeah.
They're doing something.
Yeah.
So now you focus their energy. I know. We deal with people that are supposed to have mental health, ADD, ADHD.
Yeah.
Schools have kicked them out and labeled them. But they could break down a gram, an ounce.
Yeah, right. They're good at math when they need to be.
And sometimes you're at the station trying to weigh their stuff, and they're going off figures fashion. The scale is laying them out.
Right.
So you're trying to tell me that person can't put towards a count or something like that. So that man has never just been guided.
Right.
So I think for the way to fix it, the youth is for older males like you and I to guide them.
To be out guiding them.
And that's
right.
what I think our lack is in the black community.
And
we don't have enough leaders guide.
Okay.
Guiding them to the right direction. We celebrate, not we, but a lot of our culture is drugs.
Yeah.
Living in the ghetto. But I mean, a lot of these athletes make it out the ghetto, but they never come back to the ghetto and rebuild the ghetto.
Yeah.
So nobody's guiding.
Right.
Kids, they're just stuck in the sand pit.
And so in all fairness, I have to challenge you. What is your message you sent a message to the community. What would your message be to your fellow officers that would help fix this situation?
It's a good question. But I have to go back to, I don't think it's going to get fixed until we fix it.
It's really, in your mind, it's really on us.
It's the only way to change. If you want something, if you want your life to change, it's up to you to change it. You don't count on somebody else to change it. So if I'm not doing well financially, I go out and look for a better job. I don't think that I wait for someone to come give me a job.
Right.
So I think my fellow officers, for the most part, are doing the scope of their job.
Yeah.
It just happens to be a 95% white male job.
Right.
There's no black applicants.
Right.
And I'll be the first one to tell you that. You know what I mean? I think the most I've ever applied with was 5. And that was like in the city, northern part of the city.
Mm-hmm.
But there is none. It is just how it is. So, I think, I would like to think that for the most part, officers operate within the scope of the law. But until we change our culture, the way we hold ourselves accountable, the way we carry ourselves, this will never change. This will never end. It'll just be a repeat cycle. Media's going to eat it up. They're going to love it. And then move on.
There's so much that I know there are people out there who are gonna take issue. Right. There's people are gonna take issue with this. So
and that's what I'm claiming. This is just my personal.
Right.
And I'm not talking about any particular event that happened in America.
Right. And you're not speaking for police officers as a whole. Right. In all fairness. Right.
I just think
right.
as a black male and as a police officer, I have kind of a unique view of seeing how both ends work, and law will not change until we change. It's just how it has to be.
And so, if you have a challenge for Officer Cole, if you disagree with him, and I disagree with him about some of this stuff, but I wanted to hear his perspective. If you have a comment, please leave that comment. Leave it on YouTube. Leave it on Facebook if you see us there. Let us know what you think about this. Officer Cole brought us a really, really interesting perspective, gave us some food for thought. I hope you take something from it. I certainly did. If you have not yet done so, please subscribe to our channel so you'll know when things come out. Leave a like, hit the notification button so you get messages sent to your phone when we do something on this channel. That's all I've got for today. And I'm Dr. Rueben Brock. This is House Call.